Super Mario RPG is a very in-depth game with plenty of secrets to find, but if you clicked on this video, you probably already knew that. Let's talk about some of the deeper details of the game that even die-hard fans might not be aware of. This wouldn't be much of a video if I didn't start out with my namesake, the Axem Rangers. Up to this point in the game, major bosses give you fairly decent experience points, but you may have noticed that defeating the Axem Rangers gives you a whopping 17 experience. That's not a lot, but there's actually a reason for this. Each of the Axem Rangers has their own unique experience value from 10 to 40, including the blade itself. I'm not sure why they have different values, maybe Nintendo was playing favorites. Collectively, the Axem Rangers are worth 190 experience points. So why don't you get anything close to this for beating them? You only receive experience points from an enemy if that enemy dies, meaning they fade away, or poof into stars. None of the Axem Rangers actually die in battle. When their HP reaches 0, they have some quick little quip, and then they just stand there menacingly for the rest of the fight. Thus, you don't get experience points for beating the individual team members. The only enemy in this fight that does die is the blade. The blade is worth 50 experience points. Divide that by your 3 party members, round up, and there you have your 17 experience points. The fact that all of the Axem Rangers have experience values, even though they don't give you experience, tells me that this was likely a developer oversight. If you're somewhat familiar with this game, you probably know already that you can defeat Exor in one hit using a well-timed Geno Whirl. What you may not know is if you're supposed to be able to do that. There's a particular property that can be given to monsters called mortality protection. Practically speaking, mortality protection is what makes it so you can't use a timed Geno Whirl on an enemy. All bosses have this property given to them. Yes, including Exor. Then why does Geno Whirl work on Exor? Both of its eyes have a series of commands saying that, if their HP hits 0, they disable Exor's invincibility. However, invincibility is a different property than mortality protection. Disabling one shouldn't disable the other, so we're back to our original question. Why does Geno Whirl work on Exor? I can only assume that disabling a monster's invincibility status also disables its mortality protection by mistake. So to answer the question, it's probably unintentional. However, considering they left the ability to use Geno Whirl on Exor in the remake, I think the development team realized that just because something is unintentional doesn't make it bad. One of Smithy's transformations is a giant treasure chest head that uses different status ailment attacks with psychedelic colors. Groovy. These attacks don't do any damage, except one, the Scarecrow attack. The weird thing about it is that this is the only attack in the game that does damage to the party without displaying any damage numbers. You'd only notice that it did damage if you looked at the party's HP before and after the attack. Watch closely. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it did do something. The fact that the other chest head spells don't do any damage leads me to believe that this was probably another developer oversight. Hey, it was the 90s. Mario could do a lot back in those days, but releasing patches was not in his repertoire. In the forest maze, there's a secret area you can access once you get to the actual maze portion of the forest. From Mario's perspective, head left, straight, and right, and you'll find a tree stump with some treasures inside. What you might not know is that the contents of these treasure chests changes depending on this guy in Rosetown. Once you press the green button in his house to bring back his stairs, he'll ask you about the treasures in his house. Depending on your answers, and if you stole the treasures in his house, the treasures in the forest will change. Here's a handy summary chart for you. What's more, the the treasures on the first floor of his house change. Before he asks you about his treasures, the 2 chests contain flowers. After he asks you about his treasures, the 2 chests contain a total of 13 coins. One final note: if you get the treasures in his house and the forest before ever helping him get back into his house, and then later admit to stealing his treasures, he'll reward you with a frog coin. When creating a game, developers will often include an error message that pops up anytime the game encounters something it doesn't know how to handle. In Super Mario RPG's case, that message is "Go Whirl," which can be found as the very last entry in the game's battle dialogues data. Ideally, any situations where the player would encounter this message would have been fixed during testing. However, there's at least one scenario that slipped through the cracks. During the fights against the manager or the director, if you use the sheep attack to get rid of their hammer minions, they will try to summon more minions on their turn. However, something about removing these minions with this unconventional item makes it so they can't return to battle. When the main enemy tries to summon them, that error message is given. You broke the game. I hope you're happy. The goodie bag item you get in Booster Tower has an infinite amount of coins in it, but you can only get those coins by using it in battle. This isn't something I see mentioned very often, but the goodie bag has a 1 out of 6 chance of giving you 5 coins instead of 1 when you use it in battle. Maybe not the most groundbreaking discovery, but hey, apparently a lot of people didn't know that. Bowyer's signature move is blocking your commands. Once he starts blocking commands, he'll do it for the rest of the fight, and there's nothing you can do about it. However, in Bowyer's battle script, there's code to give you back access to all of your commands if you use a carbo cookie on him. Of course, there's 2 issues with this. 1, the only place in the game to get carbo cookies is Moleville, which you can't get to until after beating Bowyer. And 2, carbo cookies aren't usable in battle. Even if they were, they don't have a battle animation. The script for this game is very well put together, but a few errors did make their way through to the final game. The 3 little Goombas in Monstro Town sell you a mushroom that heals you but also turns you into a mushroom in battle. The description for this mushroom is missing a letter in recover. They're just kids, guys. They're doing their best. There's an optional boss in Land's End. It starts out as an invisible monster called Formless, and then once you use a special attack on it, it turns into an enemy called Okura. But that's not what the text box said. The poor guy's having an identity crisis. Last, we're back to my namesake, the Axem Rangers. If you use Psychopath on Axem Black, you'll see him run into a grammatical issue. You are timing stinks? Whatever floats you are boat? That's all I have for you in this video. Did you learn anything? Do you know something I don't? Let me know in the comments. Until then, I'll see you next time.